Hello Year 10, I think I've got it working. Welcome to your English lesson for today. Right, I feel like I'm going to have to start speaking in an American accent, so it's a proper YouTube one, so apologies if I start being like a real YouTuber. Anyway, make sure that you've got your Christmas Carol books, rulers, highlighters, everything that you need for today, and then we can get started. Before we do then, so now we've finished Stave 3, I would like you to pause here, have a go at answering those 5 questions, and then self-assessing yourself using the answers on the next slide. Try and do it from memory rather than using your fact book and your copies of A Christmas Carol in front of you, because then you can really start testing and seeing where the gaps in your knowledge are. Right, so there are the answers. If you've not got full marks, you do need to go back and either reread or listen to the audiobook or watch the film version of the text again. As I've said before, that if we were reading it in class, we'd be watching all of the film versions anyway. You know what I'm like. But making sure that you know the plot will really help your basic understanding of the text, and then we can start building on it. Otherwise, we're going to go on to Stave 4 today. I have put the links below, so you can just double click on those, and then you can start listening to the audiobook or the film version. So you're watching that up until an hour and 13 minutes if you're still enjoying that. The first fact then that we're going through today then is the ghost of Christmas yet to come. So this ghost represents Scrooge's future. Again, I've put the corresponding page number from your copy of A Christmas Carol on here too. So what I want you to do is to pause and then highlight any words which describe this threatening appearance of the ghost, and then we'll go through it in the next slide. Right, the first thing then is, in contrast to the other 2 ghosts that we've met, so the Christmas past and then Christmas present, this ghost doesn't have any light at all, and this lack of light symbolises no hope. Although you could turn that on its head if you wanted to, and this lack of light also shows that Scrooge is able to realise that he's making these mistakes now, and he doesn't necessarily need that light, that guidance from the ghosts anymore. So there's like an alternative meaning there. Otherwise, if you can just copy down these annotations that I've done, or add to the ones that you've already made. So the first one then is the use of colour, so it's all in black, that's symbolising death, there's darkness, no happiness in life. Very, very similar to Scrooge's life, how it was described in Stave 1. We've also got this imagery that's being used here of him being like the Grim Reaper, so when they're wearing all the hood and everything, and figure of death. And remember that this is linking with the Gothic genre. So fact 2 is there that in the Victorian times, 1843, when the novel was written, there was a lot more heightened interest in supernatural and people looking for questions from other answers rather than just religion, and that's again why Dickens is using the ghosts to spread his message, to echo his voice of making sure that we change and bring about social reform. We've also got the outstretched hand, which is intimidating, and that's further emphasised by him not speaking at all. So he ignores Scrooge, which is very similar actually to most people that Scrooge meets. If you remember again in his introduction in Stave 1, people just used to avoid him to the extent where they even would go into alleyways to avoid crossing paths with him. So make sure you've got those down. I know I'm going to be going super fast today, so pause it, rewind it, whatever. Right, for this one then, I want you to highlight all the examples that show Scrooge is afraid of this spirit. So again, have a look about page 51 in your copies here, and then we can go through it together. So the ones that I've got then is he's asking questions, and I think that that's sort of showing that Scrooge is desperate to learn the ghost's lesson now. He's understanding that he's got to change his ways, or otherwise there's going to be no hope for him. And again, the use of that word pursued is showing that it's like his determination. He wants to change. His legs trembling is showing that he's afraid of what the ghost is going to show him. Has he changed already? Does he actually need this lesson from the ghost, or has he remembered seeing the Cratchit family and that's enough to redeem him now? So you've got like that question. Okay, so moving on to this one here then. Just find these quotes that I've highlighted in red. So dramatic irony, as you've seen on one of your facts, is when the reader knows something that the character doesn't. We know that this man that all these people are talking about and that Scrooge eventually sees on the deathbed is Scrooge. So if he doesn't change his ways, he will die, and this is how people are going to respond to him. But Dickens does use dramatic irony here. All of these examples that I've highlighted in red shows that nobody cares about this man dying. No one is upset by his death. So if you just find those ones there, and again, it's just sort of letting the reader realise before. We've got this one here as well. It's called Old Scratch, and no one wants to even engage in a conversation about it. They just return to talking about the weather. So it's quite a dismissive reaction there. Right, I would like you to pause the video here, have a look at the Old Joe extract, and I'll start thinking about what his attitude is like and the other thieves that are in this extract towards this dead man. And then we can go through the annotations together. Have a look at this extract as well, using those quotes there, using those questions there. Okay, so your fact as well that I've done, number 4, the description of the area where Old Joe lives just emphasise the levels of poverty and the conditions that people lived with during the 19th century. Compared to the description of the Cratchit family, Dickens does use a less sympathetic tone here. It's less romantic. It's supposed to shock us a little bit more to show the extremities that people will go to try and survive. So find these quotes that I've highlighted in red and then add to your annotations if you need to. So first of all, the action of these thieves mirror Scrooge's attitude towards money. So there's no respect there whatsoever. They think, well, I'm going to gain from people's problems, from people's poor-comings. They criticise the way that this man, again, dramatic irony, treated others when he was alive, so he wasn't natural, which I think is quite an important quote to remember. Dickens, again, is saying that we should be kind to people, and that's surely a natural part of our spirits, really, of mankind. And the man was lonely right up until his death, so he was alone all by himself. There was no one there to look after him. Moving on, we've got these quotes here. They're so desperate for money, they've got no remorse for their actions whatsoever. So to the extent where this dead man is lying on his bed, they've gone and taken the bed curtains around. We know from earlier on in the story that Scrooge's bed has got those curtains around it. The ghost removes them, he removes them, he hides behind them. So again, we know that this is Scrooge before he realises who the ghost is showing him, people talking about. And then you've got this real desperate behaviour here, total lack of respect. So she's even gone to the extent where she's taken his best shirt off the dead body to sell. And again, it's showing like proper ruthless behaviour, really. But again, like how desperate they are to earn. Moving on then, so about page 57 in your copies here, we then see this dead man, and we see him like on his uncurtained bed. Highlight those 3 quotes there, then the bare uncurtained bed, plundered and bereft, and then the dark empty house. And these are all showing the consequences of selfish behaviour. Now, what Dickens does create a little bit of emotion and sympathy for this character here. We do feel a little bit of pity for him because we don't want the idea of anyone to be alone when they are dying in this situation. He goes one step further as well, describing the sound of the gnawing rats, which is quite disturbing and showing the neglected nature of this body to the extent where he's going to get eaten. His corpse is going to get eaten. So find those quotes. He's starting to show us that Scrooge needs to change, and I think because he's changed his ways and his attitude towards people since seeing the Cratchit family, we are allowed to feel a little bit more empathy. He's allowing us to. Now, with Tiny Tim's death, this is a total contrast, so juxtaposition, you've heard that word before, it's a new word for just contrast, to this other man. Now, the first thing that we need to look at then is the entirely different atmosphere to that what was described in Stave 3, when it was busy, when it was a hustling, bustling atmosphere, and this just shows the influence of Tiny Tim, and also their family love and loyalty for each other. Tiny Tim's death just unites them in their grief. And at the end, Mrs. Cratchit is still being loyal to Bob. She doesn't want to show how upset she is by Tiny Tim's death. She's trying to protect him. She doesn't want him to worry anymore. And then we've also got this description when Bob returns of Tiny Tim's grave. And as I've put there, the Tiny Tim's grave and Scrooge's grave, which we've seen a couple of paragraphs time, do reflect that affection of the people that they've left behind. And that's one of your other key facts, number 5. Bob is absolutely distraught at Tiny Tim's death, as we know. And this Stave 3 showed us how close they were when he was holding his hand, when they were close to him, when he was being his blood horse and carrying Tiny Tim on his shoulder. And this is quite heartbreaking now that we see how broken Bob is by Tiny Tim's death. But Tiny Tim's death, where his body is laid out, is a complete opposite sort of atmosphere to the one where we saw Scrooge's dead body. It's lighted cheerfully, it's hung with Christmas, so they're still trying to make it a nice situation, really. And then Bob is so strong, so he sees Tiny Tim laid out, and then he's reconciled to what's happened. He went down again quite happy, so he's sort of like, okay, I'm seeing Tiny Tim, I can deal with that now, and now I need to go and protect the rest of my family. So he's so strong. And this is the contrast then. So pause it, have a look at this extract here, and then show how Scrooge reacts towards this event. Try and find quotes that show his reaction, and then we can go through it. So about page 63 on your copy. So these are the quotes that I found then. Again, so you should be looking at this and the contrast between this description and then Tiny Tim's one. So because he's creeping towards it, it's kind of slowing the pace down a little bit, and I think that this is kind of like he knows what he is about to see. He's trying to delay the inevitable. He's trying to pause and just slow down time because he knows what he is about to see. And Scrooge doesn't need any help or guidance from this ghost at all. He knows what he needs to do to change. He's asking all these questions again. And because he's clutching at the spirit's robe, it shows how desperate, frightened, terrified he is. And this quote here, when Scrooge says, like, why show me this if I'm past all hope? This is linking to Dickens' intentions. If you remember back in like one of the first lessons when I was saying that the use of verbose by Dickens in Scrooge's introduction, and when he's saying like Scrooge is miserable and he's mean and he's hard and sharp as flint, solitary as an oyster, blah blah blah. If Scrooge can change, then anybody in society can change, and then Dickens will have his he'll have his wish come true, and everyone will start supporting people that are less well off than them. And because Scrooge is displaying this changed attitude, then the ghost is allowing themselves to change their attitude and their treatment of Scrooge as well. So all of a sudden the ghost is kind. These are the main events of the Stave 4 then. Make sure that you have got all of those annotations down. There was a lot to go through in this lesson. If I've gone through anything, as always, if I've gone through anything too quick, or if you think I want a little bit more information on that, I am more than happy of doing sort of another 5 or 10 minute recap. We are limited to how long we can record these lessons for, which is why I'm sort of like all the time. But hopefully